So this is kind of funny. I joke that I'm not a recruiter, but having gotten into Commerce Hero, initially Commerce Hero, the idea was to essentially be like Upwork for Magento, mostly focused on freelance work. And then people said, well, hey, I need somebody full-time. Do you need anybody full-time? So I add a checkbox into the system for full-time, and all of a sudden 80% of the business is full-time hires. I didn't know anything about quote unquote recruiting. It's not like I did a whole bunch of market research and looked at how all the other recruiters operate. The only exposure I had to recruiters was essentially thinking they're all horrible. As a developer, you're constantly getting harassed by recruiters. And, you hear of scenarios where like recruiters do slimy things like calling up a company and asking for an individual pretending to be somebody else so they can get on a phone with somebody and then offer them a job. I just kind of backed into it, because I had sold my last business and I had constantly heard people say like, oh man, I need to hire a Magento developer. And on the other hand, I knew so many Magento developers, having just been connected on Twitter, going to conferences, and I knew a bunch of developers, and I was like, oh, like I know people that are available and stuff. And I made a couple intros organically, and then I was like, oh, that can't be so hard. And so then basically built the business around it. And so now that I've been doing this for, I guess, 3 years now, I think that some of the principles in, if I were to say how to be a good recruiter, I think some of the principles are be actively involved in a specific niche, in a specific community, and be genuinely involved in it. I've seen these posts where somebody gets hit up by a recruiter, and then the way they respond to them is they send them a whole list of acronyms or technologies, and they say, which of these are real, right? So there's like, a whole bunch of languages or skills that they have. And it's like, the joke is like, as a recruiter, they don't even know which of those things are actual skills or things versus made up words. It's not like I went into things like with this plan, and like executed this plan. It's just like looking back on it, that's what ended up happening. But be genuinely involved in a community and actually care about it, actually care about the people, both sides. So there's two sides of the market. So there's the clients and then there's the candidates. Actually genuinely care about them and connect with them. And that takes time. That's not something that you can just push a button and then it'll happen. LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is an important tool. The way you do LinkedIn outreach, I've talked about that before. I think I have a couple videos on how to do just messages. Like don't send these massive long messages, right? Like connect with people in your second degree. It's pretty simple, but there's a lot of people that do LinkedIn in sort of like a spammy kind of a way. Do LinkedIn well with a bit of like a light touch. Know the community that you're in. And then, you're going to run into some little bit hairy situations with what's ethical, what's the line between, it's a weird business to be in because one day you have a client who, again, going back to the first point, be genuinely connected to the community you're in. So it's not just a client, it's somebody that maybe you met, maybe they're a friend, maybe they're a colleague that you know them, you like them. And so one day they're like, hey, I'm looking to hire somebody, cool. You look for somebody, you find somebody, whatever. And then a couple months later, somebody that works for them is looking for a job. And it's like, ooh, that's tough. How do I deal with that? The line that I've landed on is that I'm not going to actively recruit somebody that works for somebody I know. However, if they approach Commerce Hero, if they sign up, if they raise their hand, then you got to respect that preference. And early on, I had situations where I would like not want to be involved in that situation if they worked for somebody I knew. But I realized like, you got to respect their preference. And if they want to look for something, you got to honor that, even though it's a bit painful knowing they work for a friend of yours and stuff. So finding that line I think is important, right? Because if you're the type of person that like you just don't care at all and you just like one day you hire somebody for a client and the next day you're actively recruiting that client's developers, people are going to lose respect for you pretty quickly. And that comes back to genuinely caring. Like that comes back to actually caring about the community and the people and finding that line that you're comfortable with. So anyways, I just want to say that real quick. Maybe there's one recruiter or aspiring recruiter out there who will see that and do things a little better. I was talking to a buddy of mine and he's like, it's so weird that you built this like hiring platform. He's like, I never would imagine you could have done that, but you just did it. And I was like, I know, dude. And then he's like, by the way, have you ever done like placements for like salespeople? And I was like, I actually have like done like 3 of them because, an agency owner and they've hired developers and like, oh, I need a salesperson. And then you're like, look in your network and you're like, oh yeah, there's a few salespeople in here. And so I was like, if you didn't think I would do something for developers, like you never thought in a bajillion years I'd do something for salespeople. So anyways.